Okay, I would like to to express my view on Hegel's distinction between der Verstand in German, which is translated in English by the understanding, and die Vernunft, which is translated in English by reason. And what we in the modern scientific world call rationality is what Hegel would call Verstandlichkeit. It means what is a product of the understanding of der Verstand, and what we call mystical is what Hegel calls speculative, and is the product of die Vernunft, the reason. And the difference is not strictly and only formal, but if you want an illustration, let us say that the Anglo-Saxon mind, with its empiricism, scientific rationality, analytical logic, symbolic logic, the Anglo-Saxons think with der Verstand, the understanding, whereas reason tends to grasp together what der Verstand separates. The principle of the understanding, as explained by Hegel, is the principle of identity. A equals A. A cannot be A and not A at the same time, and A is either A or not A, and there's no further term. That's the principles of Aristotelian logic, which most people use. The principles of Hegelian logic, speculative logic, or mystical logic, is that when you set a term which is limited, it contains within its own concept the not being of that which you set, the other of the notion or the idea or the thing is contained in the concept, as Hegel understands it, of the thing itself. So to grasp a thing according to reason, die Vernunft, is to grasp the thing in its unity with its not self or other or other being or not being or opposite. And reason is not only this grasping of the conceptual unity of differences, it is also more in a Kantian way. It's more Immanuel Kant, but Hegel kind of takes the ideas also. What Kant, in his philosophy of pure reason and practical reason, calls the idea, it's the idea with a great I, not just a notion or an idea that we have, it's the idea, is a rational totality. But for Kant, reason is not speculative, but it's a rational totality whose principle determines each part, and each part of the system built by reason is determined by the idea of the whole. So in a rational system, according to Kant, the idea of the totality determines the reality and the being of each of its constitutive parts. And if you want an empirical example, life, an organism, is, in Kant's view and also in Hegel, is a manifestation of an idea, because in an organism, the idea of the whole precedes and determines the relation of all the parts. And so, according to Hegel, he kind of takes partly this definition of the idea in Kant, and for Hegel, the idea is the rational totality, and Like I said, what is rational for Hegel means what is vernünftig and not what is verstandig, although the vernünftig contains within itself the verstandig, so the verstandig aspect, the aspect of the scientific understanding, is included within the rational kind of speculative understanding of being, but it's limited. And for Hegel, the idea, what he calls the idea, is the totality, which is a logical totality, which determines the whole of being. And yeah, that's what I wanted to say.